right. So I'm sure when you all signed up, you saw the description in your link, but we're going to just talk a little bit today. What does it feel like, or what does that journey look like as we're moving from the control to support? So, from parenting to now supporting the skills that we have developed in our young people and watching them move forward as they move from under our wing and undivided protection to actually using those skills in real life. What does that look like? So today, my name again is Mychele Lucas. I am called mom by about six people out here, these six young adults that I have moving forward. My oldest is at 34. My youngest is at 17. I have one that will be graduating tonight, and then one baby left to go, and only one son in the bunch. But what does that look like of wanting them to move into the world and watch them as adults, and then that fear of sticking them, hey, get back in my pocket. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. What does that look like? And then Stephen, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Stephen Bora. Been with Be Strong Families for a couple of years now. I generally work with the Youth Advisory Board Program Manager for the Central and Southern regions, but always relish the opportunity to come here and be a part of a webinar. And then also joining Mychele and myself is Miss Alyssa.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alyssa Del Angel. I also work with the youth in Be Strong Family. I'm the facilitator for all of our affinity groups. We have Latino, African American, and LGBTQ. So for youth in care, I've learned a lot about support. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you all. Next slide, please. All right, so today we just want to quickly go over the protective factor tools for today: communication, social and emotional competence of children, and then support, concrete support in time of need. So we want to just make sure that that's our mindset. That's how we're looking at this moving forward. Next slide.
All right. So for our first question, we're going to be looking at that protective factor of communication, as Alyssa just mentioned. So our first question to ponder this afternoon is, how do you help your teen or emerging adult think about their future? You're welcome to use the chat. We would love to hear your voice. If you want to share your voice and respond by audio, just raise your hand. I think Andrew's adding that in the chat, and then we will yield the floor to you. Andrew is also kind enough to add that question in the chat as well. So how do you help your teen or emerging adult think about their future? Personally, I know I like to ask a lot of questions. Obviously young people, they have a lot of imagination. They're very creative, oftentimes. So I like to gauge the questions. As a former history teacher myself, you'd run into the very popular ones. I want to be a professional athlete. I want to be a professional music artist. Yeah, Michelle Murphy, what their goals are. That's a good jumping off point, right? Figuring out what is the future you want for yourself, and getting to ponder those questions. Mm-hmm. What else?
I know for me, Stephen, it was one of the things I had to really come to terms with was not making my goals their goals. That was one of the, I guess, the hardest thing from the parent point of view, right? Like, because I had visions of what they were all going to do, might not necessarily match the journey that they are, divinely placed on. And that part of loving them unconditionally was to support them through their journey, even if that wasn't what I saw, right? Like, so how to get the best out of it when it didn't match what I had. And yeah, so that's one of the things that's like kind of difficult for me. I'm still working on it, but it is what it is. Let's see. Dana said in the chat, when a young person asks me what I think, I always answer without really saying my opinion and ask them their opinion. Listen rather than tell. Yeah. Thank you, Dana.
That kind of matches my approach as well, Dana. Right? If someone tells me, you know, a young person, 15, 16, 17, tells me they want to be in the NBA, right? I'm not going to be like, oh, wow, you know, like that's nearly impossible, right? I think if you look at the numbers, and I was thinking about this last night, right? NBA finals are on. Um, and they were talking about, I think it was Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, you know, and he had this same exact experience being in high school and saying, like, I want to be in the NBA. And I think like it was like his teacher was the bad person for saying, oh, you know, I think you try doing something more realistic. But I think those kinds of numbers are important, and not to be the one to say, oh, wow, that's unrealistic. I think that's a little uncouth. But perhaps saying, you know, like, look at the numbers. There's, you know, what is it now? Are we at 7 billion people worldwide? And I think maybe less, probably fewer than 1,000 people are professional in the NBA alone, right? So that's a very small drop. So the question then that I like to ask, just as you say, right, I don't want to give my opinion. Okay, so what are you doing to make it to the NBA? What time are you getting up on Saturday and Sunday morning? How many hours are you spending hooping in the gym? Right? What are the you know, the toolkits that you have? Right? Asking those questions, you know, to again try to pull that out and bring, okay, here's the idea I have. How are you making that reality? And again, just as you say, Dana, let them speak about it instead of me.
Mhm.
And again, it comes
And
back to those questions. Yeah, sorry, Mychele, did you have something to add?
no, I was saying, and too, when you're having those conversations, as we're looking at the realistic side, also going through the list of why do you want to do that? Like, what is your ultimate goal that's moving you there? Because if it's not a passion, then the incentive is going to fail off, right, when you hit the wall. So like if my child was saying about want to go to the NBA, if the passion is just that you like the sport of basketball or whatever, there's so many other things that you can do in basketball, right? So now this person still gets to live their passion. That if you only have the one dream in mind, then it keeps them from feeling as if they failed at what they've wanted to do, because you still get to live your dream, but the dream might look a little different, right? So just even giving them that option. And one of the things I always like to tell my kids, you have the ability to reinvent yourself as often as you want. Just because that was your dream job for the first 20 years, you know what I'm saying? The first till you were 20 or 21 or whatever, 25 to 30, do something else. 30 to 35, you can do something else. You know what I mean? Like you can always reinvent. It's not that you have to make this ultimate answer the first 4 years of college right out of high school, and now you're stuck doing that for the next 70 years. Does not have to be your life. Just enjoy it and move as often as you need to. So
I
Absolutely.
agree. I agree with all the things you all are saying. I feel like especially when they're so young, they are just in that exploration phase of like, what is going to bring me joy? What is going to bring me peace and happiness? So as the adult, I just try to be a support person of, can I gather? I have some resources. Maybe this is our stage of resource gathering and trying to figure out what your options are, what it can look like, and talking to people and getting their input in that profession or things like that. So it's a lot of listening, and then just hanging out for the ride.
And with that too, I agree. I think those are great ideas, right? Looking at what's adjacent to perhaps the specific goal or career path. But the other thing I want to touch on is the authentic experiences. And while I'm going into this, also again, want to encourage everyone to respond in the chat. We'd love to hear what your thoughts are. Otherwise, you know, I'm just going to be talking too much, which happens. But giving young people a chance for authentic experiences. Okay, you want to be a baker. You know, if we start to look at just general profession path, you want to be a banker, you want to be a policeman, you want to be a fireman, whatever it is, getting that young person into an authentic experience with the profession, whether it's, oh, I want to be a nurse, go into the hospital, see what it's like to shadow a nurse, you know, realizing that you might be working 12-hour shifts, and giving, you know, these young people opportunities to actually see that profession for what it is and to interact with the people that hold that profession. So then they can ask this person, because I don't know what it takes to be a nurse. I don't know what it takes to be a fireman, but I do know that if you interact with these people and ask them the questions about their career path, they're going to love to share that with you.
Mm-hmm. Miss Susan said in the chat, asking questions and being a resource to finding ways to achieve the goals they set. So yeah, that's really important. I know one of the things that even when I looked back of when I was raising my kids, of some of the things I wish that I had known coming up, right? It was such a push for the college story, and I'm definitely not down on college, but I knew that that was something I wanted to be a teacher in some form of fashion. I didn't know how that was going to look, but going to school to get my teacher's license, and then, like you said, Stephen, of now getting that experience to see what it looks like in the real world, I knew that I was not going to be the type of teacher that can move within the structure, right? I was my own um, spirit creature of how I taught and how I moved and how I connected with my students. Didn't necessarily work with how the school system have to meet numbers and things like that. So it was really a tug of war. But in the meantime, even while I was going to school for that, my dad was into construction. So he was like, hey, still you can go and go get your license as a carpenter. Like you can still go do construction work. And so I got to do both at the same time. So that was something that now I could take that experience to my children of saying, hey, as you graduate, there is no push that you have to go straight to college. Take that time in between the 18 and 20, go work some temp agencies, go try to see what these jobs look like for real in real life. It looks great on paper, but it don't necessarily look so great when you go to work in the field. Go try it out and see if that's something you really want to spend $50,000 on learning how to do to work. You know what I'm saying? Because we still paying these student loans. It's like, man, I ain't even doing it no more. So yeah, that was one of the things too. I just really wanted to give them what it looked like for me from that end, and to let them know it was okay not to move within the box of what everybody else is moving. It's okay to move at a different drum if that, if that's what you feel you need to do.
Absolutely. And that makes me want to just add one more. I think we'll maybe move on to the next question. Again, I do want to encourage all our attendees to add their input, whether in the chat, raise your hand. We want to hear your thoughts. But the last thing I think before we move to the next question and with closing thoughts is thinking about, yes, just as Mychele said, what are the educational components for that goal? Whatever the goal is, okay, do you need a 4-year degree? Do you need a 2-year degree? Are you going to need a post-secondary degree? What are the trainings or education that you will need to fulfill that? And I think that's something very important to consider. Is what are the either the trades, again, all that stuff, but what's the education you need to be successful with whatever that path is, and to think critically, and then how to be successful in those trainings and education.
Susanna got her hand up.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I think that what's interesting about these younger generations is that they will have employment that we don't even know about yet, that we don't know may exist in the future. And that being said, I think it's also exciting. One of my 11-year-old and 15-year-old's dream is to be a YouTube sensation. And that's something that we were able to right away try on. They had their taste tests on YouTube. They had their, cooking challenges on YouTube, and they were able to try that on immediately. So along the lines of what Mychele said, it is important to, I think, try it on, right? Try on and be that support of setting up those little cameras and, getting the lighting right. And luckily we had the fortune of having those little, going to Amazon and getting our little lights right, and having our studio in our kitchen, and having the chef's hat. So kind of being that support and saying, okay, this is what you want to do. This is what it's going to take. And this is what we're going to, have to look into, and what's important to this field, whether it's education or likes or whatever it may be. So it can, we're in kind of an uncharted waters with what their employment is going to look like, I think so. I think that's what is also like kind of making me weary, but also excited that they can have a very lucrative career without a whole lot of student debt.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing, Susanna. Trying it on, and then yes, also that difficulty of where will the jobs be, right? That's why I always like to talk about healthcare, right? We're always going to need doctors, we're always going to need nurses. The healthcare industry seems, pretty strong, but again, there's still a lot of unknowns, and with the exponential rate of technology ever increasing, oh boy. Awesome. I think Amanda had a hand up. Amanda, I'm not sure if you still wanted to share, if you can, and then I think we'll move forward. But Amanda, if you did want to share, just throw your hand up right now. We'll make sure you get a chance. If not, I think we will move forward. All right, let's go ahead and move forward to the next question, Andrew. But don't worry, there will be plenty of opportunities to share on this question, which is, how do you assist your teen or emerging adult with making healthy decisions? How do you handle it when their peers advise or pressure them differently? And I'm not actually going to start by answering this. I just want to, one of the things that we talk about, coincidentally, actually not one of our these two protective factors, but knowledge of parenting and child development. And I think one of those big things, especially with teens and emerging adults, right, is that divergence, right? You've raised this child since they were born. And that whole time you are always the number one person, right? They're always going to you for things. Now adolescence hits, now they're spending less time with the parents. Now they're spending more times with their social knit, and they might get ideas and different perspectives from their social circle, and perhaps rely less on yours. This is one of like the hallmarks of, I think, adolescence and the coming of age for young people. So we want to know, how do you assist them during that time period? How do you encourage them to make healthy decisions? And I think silence is good. Hopefully with some silence, we can reflect a little bit and share some of our thoughts. Yes, we have a hand up, Dana. Andrew's going to work to get you unmuted. Awesome.
So yes, you can hear me. This one's a really good question, because I learned from my son when he was getting ready to go to college, and he picked out one of the state schools that's known for its partying. And I said to him, "Oh, don't you want to go to another school? Because, that's a big party school." And he just looked at me and he said, "Mom, I know how to make my own decisions. And if I want to party, I'm going to party wherever I go. So, you don't have to worry about it." And later on in his college career, he was in charge of a fraternity that got into some trouble. And in discussing it with him, he said to me, there are too many parents that let their kids at 18 go to school without having them ever make their own decision. So, long story short, letting them make their own decisions earlier than when they're legally able to. As long as you keep them, you don't let them say, "Yeah, I'm going to go beat somebody up," but you can say to them that what else could you do to resolve the problem, or whatever, just to get them to talk through it, and so that they have a sounding board for when they make their own decisions. So that's what I think everybody should know.
I think that's pretty good, Dana. I know with our kids, that was one of the things that, we were more, I think, more hands-on with our girls that are in their 30s, as opposed to the second group of kids. pretty much because the world is totally different from the world that I raised my first set of children from to the second group, right? This group has been through so much, and then having to deal with a pandemic and spending most of their time online and locked up and closed. You know what I mean? It was just another whole thing, right? So now you're trying to make sure that they're growing and developing what skills they need to move outside of you, right? Because you know what I mean? They're not gonna hold on to you forever. Like that's not a sign that you have done well if your kid can never move outside of your box, right? So one of the things we have really tried to give them room to fail so that therefore now they know how to make decisions differently. But if they never experience the failure, how do they now know how to recognize it when it comes up and you're not around? Right? Just really helping them to work through that. So that was one of the things that we really tried to move with quite differently with the second half of allowing them to kind of move a little differently to deal with the consequences that comes from their action. And like Dana said about really having those conversations. So what is it? Really just asking, like even when the thing came up about curfew or them wanting to change those times and things like that. Why do you think there needs to be a change? What do you plan to do? Who are you going to be with? These are the requirements you must meet in order to have things to change. I need to know who is everybody included, where are you going, if you change direction to go to another place, I need to be informed immediately, like things like that. So they've been really good at having, I mean, being able to move through those parameters when they're given those choices, because now they know that you're trusting them, and so they hold that a little bit better than if they had to sneak out to go do it.
And I want to build off that just really quickly before we get to Susanna's comment in the chat. That making decisions, that can start super small and with like super easy things. It doesn't have to be, I know we shared that idea about like, oh, maybe, have you looked at these other colleges? That's a big party school, right? That's a big decision, figuring out where you're going to go to school after high school. But that concept of allowing our young people to make decisions can be done on a very small scale too. I think about a 4-year-old. What kind of juice do you want? Do you want grape or do you want apple? Right? Either way, they're getting juice, but building in these little opportunities to think and reflect, which one do I want? Even if it sounds kind of simple, and I realize those are two very different decisions in their magnitude, but it gets the practice, especially young, with building your own decisions and realizing I have a voice and I have an opinion, and the choice that I make is going to matter. It's going to affect the outcome. And with that being said, we'll move into Susanna's comment, which is cost/benefit analysis of sorts. She says, an example, how will smoking benefit me in my social circle? List the positive and negative. It's difficult to point out and for them to understand consequences that may occur in the future. Yes, again, lacking the ability to understand the consequences due to that lack of, probably I think it's the prefrontal cortex. The brain is not my strong suit, but I think that's the decision-making part of the brain that takes a long time to develop. And yes, we like to talk about this too with a lot of the Be Strong Families curriculum. We talk about positive risks and negative risks. And I like to talk about those as the positive risks are the ones that are going to have more likely to have positive outcomes, right? So, and I think those become clear, Susanna, as you say, when you're able to list those positive and the negatives and actually think about them as opposed to just only surface level on the decision.
And I think it's good that they even know that, like, the decisions that they make, that they have a sounding board. I think it's really important of how we respond when they come to us about those decision choices. I have really I'm still working very hard on it of trying to put my face on mute, right? Because the whole concept is like going through my mind, like, that is the dumbest thing I've heard, right? But for them, it's not like dumb, right? It's them trying to work through. So I'm still working on trying to make sure of putting my face on mute, because that they value our opinion, they value our input, right? And nobody wants to feel as if I'm being judged when I'm coming to work it out, or that sounding board, or not inputting where I'm not asked to input, especially even with my adult children, with their marriages and raising my grandkids and things like that. Not to input where I'm not asked or invited. Some things you got to learn how to hold your tongue. And even with my teenagers, of letting them really work through it, right? Like, some things you got to sit back and just be like, look, I know that I can't keep you from having all the bumps and bruises. I just want to let you know I'm here when this happens, right? So just really reassuring them of that is one of the hardest things to try to do, because you can see it coming and you're like, oh my God, please don't do that, But because you said no, it becomes the biggest yes in the book, and knowing, who you're dealing with, of how how each kid is or whatever.
And I agree with all of those things that you all are saying. I think on my end, working with the youth that we work with, I'm just always so honored that they see me as a support person and want to come to me with the way they want to take their direction. They want my opinion. They are asking me for resources and help. So I always see it as an amazing thing that I get to be this person for them, and I get to help them with the help that they need and things like that.
Definitely. Any other thoughts from our attendees? Either how we can assist making healthy decisions, or, and I don't know if we've touched on this one too much, handling that pressure when peers advise them differently.
I recently had a situation where a youth was getting a lot of peer pressure from other people. And we just had to have a quick chat and sit down of, okay, but what is going to be good for you? Let's block out the noise, the sound from everything going on around you. It's just me and you on this Zoom call. Now, what is going to make you feel content? What is going to bring you joy? What is going to have you being your authentic self? Let's focus on that. We need to go back to the foundation, because there's always going to be outside noise. The older you get, it doesn't go away. So we just need to figure out that you need to, look into yourself, work on yourself, and then the rest will follow. And it was a conversation kind of along the lines of, those who mind don't matter, those who matter don't mind. So I think that was a great conversation to have during this specific situation. And things have been going well so far. Thinking of them, making sure that they are safe, they're happy, and what's going to bring them joy in the future, even though there's a lot of sound around them from their peers.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that story with us, Alyssa. Dana adds in the chat, Dana gave their kids the difference in rules and to be accountable to the rule maker. For example, the school says you must go to school every day. Then there's senior skip school day. School rules say you should go. Mom's rules is that you decide, if you should follow that rule. If you decide not to go to school, that's okay. But mom's rule is, I know where you are. Plus, mom doesn't lie for the kids. Yes. Right. Figuring out our own individual kind of rule set and making sure that that's clear, right? Those boundaries are clear, right? Hey, if you're going to go ahead and skip school on senior ditch day, that's your choice. Just let me know where you are, because that's what I care about. I want you to know where you are and know that you're safe. Absolutely. Thank you for breaking down that story with us, Dana. All right, Andrew, I think we are probably good to move into our next question.
All right, and I would like to ask all of you this question. So how do you teach your teen or emerging adult to advocate for themselves, to get what they need from service providers? going back to, again, my experience of, the specific youth is what's coming to mind, of advocating for themselves and not knowing what the resources are, me doing my best to help them figure out what the resources are, us all doing some kind of data gathering and bringing that to the table. And because I just wanted them to know that they're worth the time. I feel like a lot of youth, no matter what the experience is, feels like they're just a teenager. They're not, treated as adults yet. They're not adults. And so the world treats them a certain way. So just trying to let them know, I'm taking the time for you. I think you're important. I'm glad you're here. And unfortunately, you have to do more advocating for yourself. And then you just find your support system who can help you the most in your journey. So that's, my thoughts for this question, but I would love to hear from everyone else.
And Alyssa, this one actually reminds me a bit of the one we talked about, making decisions for the future, right? And giving, again, young people the opportunity to choose things. And I think it's a similar idea, giving young people, an opportunity to advocate for yourself. And again, it starts with simple stuff like, oh, well, what do you want to eat for dinner? I don't care. All right, so I'm just gonna give you mashed potatoes then. No, actually think about it. If I'm asking you, what do you want for dinner? Take the time to think about what it is you want for dinner, and then we can see if we can make it happen, right? And because to me, that's a form of advocating for yourself too. And regardless of whatever these small choices are, but build up that hey, what you want matters, and you have to articulate that to other people to get what you want. And again, start small, and then ultimately it will build up to that place of being able to advocate for yourself for some of those major needs and the needs to the service provider as well.
Mm-hmm. I like that you said that, Stephen, about starting young, of teaching them that they have the right to ask, right? So even with the thing of them going to school, being a student, I know one of the things that was really difficult was when our second set of kids were going to school, and it was that whole community of school supplies where everybody's supposed to get the school supplies, and instead of you having your own tools, they will put it all into one big bin, right? And everybody is supposed to pull out of that bin. Well, that was very difficult for my youngest daughter to understand of why, if I went personally to pick out all of these, your set crayons, your set scissor and things like that, those were her things. And so now to have them put into the community box for everybody to use was just such this odd concept for her. Like, it just didn't make sense, right? So it was like, okay, she doesn't share well with others and this that and whatever. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, no, let's stop and see, like, this can be stressful, that it might not be a big thing for you, but for this 5-year-old, this is really stressful. I took the time to pick out all these things. She had her little pencil bag and all that other kind of stuff. Well, they took all of it out of the pencil bag and was like, okay, parents, don't put your name on your kids' stuff anymore, like, because it's gonna go to everybody. Okay, well, if that's what you need, then let us put some for everybody, and then I'll put her own things in her own bag, because that is a very hard concept to try to, what I mean? But now to give her the voice to say, I don't like that. Like, if I have not been told, I need all the directions. And it was a early I guess an early indicator to know that she was going to move as that person. She needed to have all directions of what was expected. What can I expect when I get there, to be able to move and work at her best? Like, once I'm being told that that's what it is, then now I can work with that arena. So even now as a high school junior, she's able to ask for what she needs. If she needed a therapist or she needed a tutor or things like that, she's able to now advocate for herself to get those things that she needs.
So there was a
Um,
message in the chat.
Go ahead.
It says, acknowledge, this is from Dana, acknowledge/remind when they have an opportunity and the right to speak up. Hard to learn, and after being told to be silent and not talk back. I 100% agree. I feel like most youth feel like they need to make themselves smaller to fit in certain spaces, and communication can be rocky because they don't have the words quite yet of how they want their future to be, their feelings, things like that. These are all things that we learn with age. So being a young person, they're just trying to figure it all out right now. And the world is making them feel one way. And then we're missing out on this like potential for this child because we're making them, shrink down and be small to fit the world when it should be the opposite. The world should be trying to fit around the young person. So I love that. Does anyone else have anything to say or like to raise their hand? If not, I think we can move to the next question.
Okay, and so that question is, what kind of community support systems should we put in place to strengthen the families? Okay, so when we think about these support systems, again, Andrew has let us know that in the chat, you can go ahead and answer either in the chat or raise your hand so we can get you unmuted. But the question is, what kind of community support systems should we put in place to strengthen families? Um, for me as a mom with just the one son, I have four daughters and the one son. One of the things that I would really like to see in place, I have watched the school system kind of change a lot to being majority of the high school that we pump our kids straight from high school into the debt pipeline, right? Straight into college to amass all this debt for classes, to take classes for jobs that either no longer exist or is not equivalent to the amount of money that you spent to get the paper to work the position, right? If you don't make enough to take care of your everyday livelihood and pay the debt back, was it really worth the investment to do? Right. So I think that for me, I would really love to see more programs in sight that does not have to be a necessarily a 4-year university type thing, but if there were some more focused community classes, like how Stephen talked about in the medical field. I don't necessarily have to be a doctor or nurse, but maybe that was a x-ray technician, or if a person wanted to clean the equipment or things like that, that there are other programs put into place that does not have to take so much money for you to move forward, I guess. It can be quite difficult. I see a lot of young people that I see coming back with the degrees that I work with and mentor in the community, that yes, they do have these degrees, but so does everybody else. So it still doesn't make you that much more marketable, and even the job that you have does not allow you to get from underneath the debt, that people are going into their 30s and 40s still carrying this debt to try to clear it out, and they've only made it to maybe being store managers at the local auto zone or something like that, because everybody got the degree, right? I know when I was coming out in the there were trade schools that were open. There was trade colleges for you to get a license in welding and all these other kind of things, that they would just teach you skills that once you have the skill, no one can take that away. Now you can go back to school and do whatever you want, but at least you have a skill that now helps you support yourself to move forward. So I would love to see definitely a lot more of those things in our community that we cater to everybody's mindset and journey, not just making everybody have to only do one path. I guess that would be something I would love to see. And then Letitia, I hope I'm saying your name right, Miss Sheets. She says parenting topics, managing behaviors, being resilient, managing stress, etc. Yes, not parenting classes just because you caught a case, but parenting classes because we need some. Bring back home economics.
That's probably my favorite class I took in high school. Was like home ec. After gym, of course.
And then let's see, Dana said more life skill programs, how to decide if college or trade education, some social and economic examples of realistic expectations. Thank you, Dana. Yeah, I would love to see us get into teaching about managing money, handling credit, like all of those kind of things. Those were something that I know we had in our home ed club. That was part of our education in high school that we actually had those things. I mean, I don't think anybody's writing checks anymore, but they should at least know how to manage like credit and things like that. We had that for high school, and we learned how to sew, just basic manage skills of how to um, just maintain yourself, right? Like just whatever. Um, okay, and so Barb said challenge of youth turning 18 in state custody in psychiatric hospital, no place to go but emergency shelter. Okay, thank you, Barb. Yeah, so it's really important that we're giving our young people the tools they need to move forward, to make this world continue to move forward, right? They are no longer they are no longer living in the world that we grew up in, right? We can no longer raise our children to a world that no longer exists. The world from the 70s, the 90s, the 2000 is like gone. We're at 2022, and I like how I forgot you said earlier about just even with children being able to be an influencer, right? The TikTok for them is real. Gaming for them is real. Like these are real jobs that they are actually doing and making money, right? So it looks totally different from the things we used to do and put together. Their world is set up different. Technology has taken another whole look. Like this has moved to a different page. Um, they are the generation that's moving forward. I don't know how long paper money is going to be around. Everybody's kind of moving on these cards, and now they're into cryptocurrency. I don't even know what that means, but things are looking totally, totally different for this generation as how they're moving forward. And I think part of our responsibility as the adults is to help them navigate their world of what it looks like for them and how do we support them to do that, right? Helping them with their journey. I know my grandparents probably never would have anticipated that this would be the world I was growing up in, and I definitely was not expecting this would be the world that my children are growing up in. And I hope to live long enough to see my grandchildren flying in their jets and cars and all the stuff that they're going to do coming forward. But that is the world that we're headed towards. So let's support our young people, making it happen as we move forward, right? Giving them our wisdom, our truth of what that looks like on that journey, because some things are never going to change. The basic is still going to always be the basic. Just how we afford to take care of it is going to look a little different for each generation. So, And then if you go ahead and put up the last slide on, get up to the last slide on.
All right. We are now nearing the end of our webinar. I see the poll has now been put up, so please do answer those questions in the poll. As you answer the questions in the poll, I want to invite everybody to share their Amplify. You can do this in the chat. You can do this in social media. Today, right, we're talking about guiding youth, so that is what we are amplifying. If you want to amplify that or something else, please feel free to type it in the chat. I see people getting to work on the polls. That's awesome. Thank you. We would like to invite everybody to our cafe on Friday. So on Fridays, we've been doing cafes instead of a webinar. And this is going to be a taste of Dad's cafes, right? I think if we look back at that question, support systems that we should put in place to strengthen families. This is one thing that I'm super proud of BSF for doing, but doing a dad cafe that is a place for dads to come together. I feel like oftentimes, for whatever reason, dads are not always necessarily the first ones in that conversation. So bringing a place, a safe and supportive environment for dads to come together and share is a really cool and unique thing that we offer, along with some of the other service providers and agencies that we work with. We're going to do a taste of those this Friday at noon. If you know any dads, please feel free to invite them, send them the link. It would be great to have them in attendance. Andrew is already kind enough to put the registration link in the chat, so that would be great. That's this Friday at noon. And I'd like to invite everyone to spring into Vitality with us. On June 9th, this week, this Thursday, we are doing a virtual escape room. What's a virtual escape room, you ask? You're going to have to attend to find out. And do you have a time on that? I see. Okay, we just put the link. Look at that. We're on Eventbrite.
It's I believe it starts at 7 to 9:30.
7 to 8:30. It looks like. Yes. Thank you, Mychele. And again, that link is in the chat. Tickets are available. Come join BSF in our community for a virtual escape room. It's going to be a lot of fun. Oh, and I'm just realizing there are QR codes on every page. So even if you don't have a link, you can always scan those QR codes. And I believe this is the last slide. You know the Be Strong Families webinars. We are here staying strong and positive for ourselves and our children. These are at noon. We have them in English on Monday and Wednesday, and en Español on martes y jueves. I believe that's probably Tuesdays and Thursdays. How am I doing, Alyssa? Good. Okay. Process of elimination. And well, everyone knows, Mardi Gras, Martes, close enough. Okay. And we're on YouTube. Not only are we here in a webinar, we're live streaming on YouTube. So Mychele, maybe we'll be able to make some of that money that those streamers make that you were talking about. All right, because that's what we're doing here. And now please feel free to send us a follow. You can catch all of our webinars, all the videos from the past. It's probably got to be a year and a half at least at this point, probably close to 2 years of webinars on there. We've got a lot of good stuff. We've got people from BSF. We have people from our board of directors and various different professionals in their craft sharing their expertise with us. I would like to thank everyone for being with us here this afternoon. And I hope you have a wonderful week and hope to see y'all on